How's everybody doing this morning? And welcome to our wonderful huddle this morning to learn about the assessor's office.
Quick point of order, Assessor. If anyone in this room is in the Greene County Leadership Academy Class 7, be sure and sign the sign-in sheet to get your extra bonus points for attending.
That's
Someone told me to say that.
3 extra bonus points.
3.
And you're going to want to get them because I'm going to be all of them. All right. Well, good morning. We were asked to give an overview of the assessor's office. I'm Brent Johnson, your Greene County assessor. This Chief Deputy Assessor.
Budget office in
And
the
then
house.
budget
Budget
office
office is
in the
here.
house.
Let's hear it for the budget office.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it was
So-
snowing on your day, so I
Well,
was.
I might have the same
technically
problem
close.
with the clicking though. So,
Yeah.
Annalise, you just want to next slide. All right. So today we're talking about the overview of our office. Next, yeah. Boom. It
There we
might
go.
work. Okay. All right. So, real quick overview. I am your 42nd assessor of Greene County. So, we've had quite a few since the county started. I am elected every 4-year term. It's a countywide election. And our term starts differently than most of our other officers. Mine doesn't start till September 1st of the following year that I'm elected. So,
Why would that be, Brent?
well, that's because it's an odd year's reassessment year. So elections it's usually on the presidential election. So it's an even year. So the odd year is the next year, and you don't want to have a new assessor come in and say, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good thing to have a start. So on August 30th is our closing of what we call Form 11A, which is our mandatory form to the state tax commission. That ends the assessment process for the reassessment, and then the new assessor takes over on September 1st. Our office has a staff of 38 individuals now into 3 different groups: the administrative group, our personal property group, and real estate. And we have a budget. Our 2025 budget's about $3.6 million, with our assessment fund for 2025 at about $8 million. Oh, I went too far. All right, Christian.
These could be smaller.
I could make them smaller for you. Absolutely.
70-inch TV, we could make them.
Yeah. So our responsibilities. So the main responsibility of our office is to assess your property, your personal property, and your real estate. We do that personal property every year. You've all gotten a letter in the mail from us, your assessment list, and then for real estates every 2 years on the odd number year. But we also apply abatements, which is the exciting part that Christian used to deal with. You want to say what kind of abatements we have?
Well, as soon as I say one, this gentleman will start clicking off 20 that he knows. SIDS, NIDS, TIFs. But there are a lot of reasons for property to be abated. Spurs economic growth, helps redevelop blighted areas. And so we will see a lot of different tools that different municipalities in Greene County will utilize to encourage economic growth. We mostly see those in commercial establishments. Sometimes you'll see them for like apartment complexes or low-income housing, things like that. All of those are statutorily allowed to have certain abatements. And so we have special tools in our software that puts the reduction in value. We still know the overall value, but it reduces the value that is transferred to Alan's office for either a suppression or a reduced tax bill. And those can sometimes last, some of them can last 25 years. Some of them have a step up from 10 years and then another 15 thereafter. So it can be a long process. So there are some abatements that I've entered in the last 2 years that I hope I never see the end of working here. I hope I'm driving a golf cart to the grocery store by the time those expire. But it requires a lot of teamwork and a lot of systems that allow it to transition successfully from one administration to another and from 1 year to another.
We also administer and review exemptions for properties. So in the state of Missouri, if you are within certain criteria, you can apply for a property exemption for real property and personal property.
Yep.
Those include religious organizations, not-for-profits, charitable organizations, any kind of taxing entities. So the city of Springfield, the school districts, if you levy a tax, and your property can be exempt from personal property taxes. And so we kind of, it's one of our jobs as well. We send out those review applications. How many we send out this year, Christian, for review?
Well, we're currently going through a lot of legacy properties that have been exempted for a long time. And so we're efforting to go through, there's about 4,500 of the almost 125,000 parcels in Greene County that have some type of an exemption that all have to be touched by hand. They have to be reviewed. Some of them require updated paperwork. Some of them have been exempt for 15, 20 years, and we have very little information or out of date information. So we're in the process of sending out updated applications, requesting updated information so that we can properly renew those entities for the exemptions that they're due.
Yeah, and those exemptions also are kind of complicated because the statutes give us direction, but not clear definitions directions. So the state has set up a set of rules called the Franciscan test that we use. It's a set of criteria that we have to go and judge each property on to determine if it is eligible for a property exemption.
Right.
One of our jobs also is appeals. So if you're unhappy with your assessment, you have the right to come in and appeal your property values. And you can do that a couple different ways. First starts with an informal appeal where you call our office and talk to us. And we talk to you and kind of explain how we came up with your value and where we're at. And the next step after that, if you're unhappy with that, it's the Board of Equalization, which is held here in this room in July of every year. And they hear your case and then they make a ruling on that. Either they side with the assessor or side with you. And if you are not happy with that result, you can appeal to the State Tax Commission, which will then start a very long process. Right now, it's about an 18-month process. Once you apply for a hearing to go through that process, we're lucky in Greene County, it's only 18 months. Some counties, it's 2 years. And then if you're not happy with that, you have the right to file with circuit court and go all the way through the appeals system to the Supreme Court. And so I have taken one case all the way to the Supreme Court, which was about the exemptions on solar panels for large solar farms, which the Supreme Court ruled it was unconstitutional to exempt them. So the legislation said they're going to exempt solar panels, and we said that wasn't, that shouldn't be exempted, and the Supreme Court agreed with us on that. So there is a very long process it goes through on those type of cases. We also have to do compliance. That's with the State Tax Commission. They're our oversight board up in Jefferson City. There's 3 commissioners who sit on the State Tax Commission along with a bunch of folks who work on their staff. Our compliance is we have to follow the statutes. They look at the statutes and tell us if we're following them correctly or not and what kind of compliance we look at. We also have SURF compliance. SURF is the retirement program. Your retirement is funded through penalties if you do a late assessment, but they also audit us on that too to make sure we're not waiving those late penalties for no reason. It's not part of the 6 reasons to waive a penalty. And then we also have the next, I can't read. I can't even read it. They're so tiny up there. We do education of our property owners, and then we also do reporting. So we have a lot of reports that we have to do on an annual basis from Form 11 and Form 11A, which are our state mandatory reports we send to the state.
That's Form 11, Brent. We said Form 11.
That
sounds like jargon.
Form 11 is a lot of jargon. I can tell you
Right.
that right now. But so what Form 11 is where we are at on assessed values as of June the 1st of the year. And what that is important is because that information goes to the taxing entities in our county. So the school districts, fire districts, library districts, they get that preliminary information to start working on their budgets for their budget cycle and for their budget meetings. Because a lot of them will have their budget meetings in August and September. So they need to have that information so they can start working on how much they're going to increase their levies by or decrease their levies by based on what the assessed valuation is. Form 11A is the same form, but updated once we amend it after the Board of Equalization. So once they hear and they make rulings or changes, we have to make all those adjustments, and that's due at the end of September. And then we can actually have another Form 11 at the end of the year called Form 11A end of year, because there's still a lot of folks come in and assess after September 1st on their personal property. And it's good to have that information on a Form 11. That's an optional one, I believe, the end of the year one is. But it's important because that's what the school districts start with to look at their budget for the next year is that Form 11 end of year. And that way they can start already don't have to call us all the time asking us for information. We also have sales ratios we have to do with the State Tax Commission every quarter. we have to look at what we have properties valued at and what they're selling at, and we send them a report of where we're at statistically. And we also have other reports when it comes to exemption reports, audit reports, lots of different things we have to do when it comes to compliance with the state tax commission. So let's talk a little bit about the administration side of the office real quick. So boy, it's really tiny. Oh, yeah.
This is why you shouldn't do presentations at 1 a.m.
That's right, exactly. But in my office, so we were in, like I said, 3 groups. The administration portion, that's where I'm housed, Christian's house, Conan, our executive deputy assessor, our admin staff, and our mapping department. And we do day-to-day tasks like any other office does in the building. We do our own HR, we do budgeting, we do customer relations, we do our legal stuff. It all comes through our purchasing. All those things come through the administration side. We also maintain the personal property, the parcel mapping, and also we transfer property ownerships and those type of things, and the compliance to the STC. So tomorrow, yay for us, we get to spend the day with the STC as they come to our office.
It's going to be fun.
It's always exciting and fun. Personal property, and that's where most of you are kind of familiar with a little bit right now. Let's talk about personal property.
Hi, Conan.
Why did I get another mailing? I just paid my taxes.
Well, that's a good question. Why did you get another mailing? So what you just paid was your property taxes for 2024, but your mailing you got in the mail was your assessment list for 2025. And under state statute, everyone in the state of Missouri who owns property on the 1st of January must submit their assessment list to their assessor by March the 1st to avoid penalty. Even if you didn't receive a list, you are still responsible for the statute. That guy's not happy either. No. If you didn't even get an assessment list, you're still required under statute to return one by March the 1st. So
what if I sold my car in February? Why am I still getting billed for it in
well,
December?
because our state legislator said what you own on January 1, you pay your property tax. So if you bought your car on January 1, you got to pay taxes for that year. But if you're smart and you buy it on January 2nd, you won't pay taxes till the following December.
And then you sell it on Christmas Day. And then you buy another one on January 2nd.
But all businesses and individuals need to submit their personal property information to us. And that's basically if you're an individual, that's your cars. I call your grown-up toys, your ATVs, golf carts, motorcycles, Sea-Doos, boats, those type of things. We do have some storage buildings that are personal property. So if you have an outbuilding that's not affixed to the ground, those are personal property. If you affix it to the ground, then that's real estate. And that's kind of a little quirky thing in statute. Mobile homes are the same way. Some mobile homes are personal property and some are real estate, depending on how they sit on the property, who owns the property and land. Also personal property are airplanes. And that's fun. We went out to the airport to look at a bunch of airplanes and get their November numbers off of them.
Right.
And so, and the unique thing about personal property, they don't like that, is that some things are assessed locally and some things are assessed at the state, depending on statute. So some airplanes are assessed here locally at our own local tax rate, and some are assessed at the state because they spend a lot of time flying in different cities and things like that. Your big airlines, they do assess their planes for us. So that's part of the centrally assessed state stats. So every plane that comes into Greene County under statute, those big American Airlines planes, we're getting a portion of those property taxes for those airplanes, just a little small fraction of it. But your personal property for your vehicles personally is at 33 1/3% of the assessed value. We assess your values of your cars in October using the October NADA guide, which is now JD Power. Which sets that value, average trading value.
But I only paid $5,000 for this new Mercedes.
Well,
Why are you charging me $30,000?
Well, you got a great deal then.
Well,
on your Mercedes.
that seems unfair.
But it may seem unfair, but statute says the average trading value as of October of the year before the 1st of January. So that's how we look at it. It's a lot of questions we get asked. It's like, I bought this less than what you're assessing it at, but the statute says we have to assess it at the actual trading value. So you might have got a great deal.
Yeah.
On that. Also, business properties assessed at different values based on some tables that the state gives us. They're not all at 33 1/3%. There's 20%. There's some things that are enterprise zones that are done at 25%. There's pollution controls that are done at different percentages. So there's a lot of different assessed values for property. Agriculture equipment's at 12%. Crops are on there. Cattle, chickens. My 4 chickens are on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of different numbers. I can see Justin Hill drooling over
Yeah.
there with all these different numbers and spreadsheets.
But
So-
in 2024, we had about 300,000 vehicles we assessed. Farm equipment, about 5,000 farm equipment. And it comes to about $1.33 billion of assessed value of personal property. And that's just a small portion, still a lot. That's the assessed value. That's not the actual true market value. That's about 125,000 accounts that we manage, and we're getting those listed. If you want to come by and take a look at lists, we got them in the office. We got about 11,000 of them yesterday.
Yeah.
So
Chuck was tired.
Chuck was tired. In our real property department, again, we're broken up into two different. I know. It looked bigger on my screen at home. We'll give you the snapshot. You can always go back and read it later online.
Yeah.
But again, we have residential and commercial. Residential folks also handle agricultural properties. We assess every odd year. So January 1's a reassessment year. So for the past 18, 24 months, we've been working up towards the reassessment for 2025. What that means is a parcel review. We go out and review all those parcels out there, make sure we have the correct condition and information on those. Residential properties assessed at 19% the market value, commercial 32%, and ag at 12%. When it comes to the assessed value, we would try that from the market value. Missouri is a non-disclosure state. So when you sell your home, we don't know how much money you sold your home for unless you come and tell me.
Yeah.
We're one of only 11 states left that's a non-disclosure state.
We can get kind of sneaky about that. Like if someone maybe in the HR office just bought a new house, say, "Oh, congratulations. That's so wonderful. So what did you end up paying for that thing?" And just don't tell us. We'll figure it out.
But if you do, we're not allowed to say anything.
Yeah,
That's right.
true.
Yeah. So we send out what we call a sales letter under statute. We have to send that out to everyone who buys a home and say, hey, how much did you pay for your home? And that's what actually helps us set our values for the coming year. What puts us at a disadvantage, though, is that if we don't get those letters back, then we're either undervaluing or we could be overvaluing your property. So having accurate information helps us out a lot, because without having to know the sales prices, we can't get the market value. And that's what we're seeing across the state right now with the real estate market increasing so much over the past few years. The assessors are not keeping up because we just don't know the sales value, the sales numbers of those homes. And so we're undervalued on a lot of properties. And now the state tax commission is coming into a lot of our county assessors across the state, telling them they need to increase quite dramatically to meet the statutory requirements.
And Brent, talk about that, because you've talked about this before, but share with the room how we're always kind of chasing our tail a little bit there.
So we're always chasing. It's a 2-year cycle. So in 2021, we had a reassessment before I took office, because I took office on September 1, so that reassessment was already over with. We don't know our results of that reassessment until 2 years later. So in 2023, right about this time, the state tax commission comes in and says, we evaluated, we got sales information, and your ratio is going to be 85%. So we knew that in 2023 that we were already at 85% market rate. So 15% lower than where the market should have been. And so within the tolerances of the IAAO, the International Association of Assessing Offices, you got to be between 90 and 110% of the assessed value. So we worked out with the state tax commission, talked about a plan, put a plan together. We increased on average 13.4%, which would get us to about 98% of market value. But that's 98% of market value for 21, not for 23. So we did the 23 reassessment. Guess what happened from 21 to 23? Your property values increased by 45%. So we were already below when we started. So now we're waiting on our results for 23's reassessment. But even though we increased a large chunk percentage wise, I got a feeling we fell backwards from 85%. But we're going to wait and find out. They're supposed to be here to tell us apart. So yeah, I'm excited waiting to hear. Yes, sir.
What's your hit rate on those letters that you send back out? Do you get 50% of them back?
No. We might get 20%
My
if we're
mother-in-law
lucky,
mailed
but
one back.
it's more. Yeah, she sent one back all right. It wasn't very pleasant.
I got a picture on it.
And the picture wasn't very nice. We get about on a good time 20%. We're looking more about 8 to 10%
Yeah.
of those come back. which if you think about how much property sold in Greene County over the last year, 8% return is very, very low.
So
on
when we
overall
don't get
basis.
that information back, then what recourse do we have? We have to go out and hire somebody to do a sales ratio study for us, which can be expensive, but in the overall scheme, it's just another tool that we kind of rely on. If we feel like we don't have enough sample data, the state tax commission wants us to have sales information, and we'll out and contract that out to a third party.
Yeah, so we do all that. We get the so we use CAMA, which is a computer-aided mass appraisal. So it's not like your fee appraisal for your home. It's done through a computer, which we put the information in. It generates the values for us. Then we go back and look at those values compared to what sales information that we have. So 2024, our year in review. I want to give you some numbers about what happened last year. We'll start with personal property. And this is bad format.
What do we got to know? We got to know our number.
Go our numbers, right? And
So
be
we
transparent.
got a lot of numbers on this one.
Got a lot of numbers up there. So what we do, we track personal property, how many times an account is touched, and how many accounts are touched by each individual on our staff, and how many by month. So we know how many accounts are being serviced by each of our individuals. But this is customer count. This is people walking in the door of our downstairs office in personal property. How many each of our employees service, those staff, those face-to-face interactions, and how much per month. So you it's hard to see, but I think it was 629 that we had walk-in folks last year to our office. 33,000 people walked into our office last year. That's a big number. We do a year-to-year trend so we can look at what's happening. There's a pattern to that. We know what the pattern is. That very end of the year, that big spike is because collector sends out his tax bills, and then people are like, I didn't get my tax bill. And so
Nothing provides clarity like a tax bill.
Yeah, so you'll see that where it's really busy the first year,
I don't have this.
we kind of go down and back up, but that's number of counts. So 2024 is it purple?
Mhm.
So we had a higher increase in December because the bills went out later in November. So we saw a higher volume in December this year than we did. So you see the red line kind of a more. So this is kind of how we look at our trends. So like when Jeff looks at his trends on the budget, we can actually look at our staffing trends. We also have calls. Every call that comes in, we have to log it. And this is information we have to track anyways, because the state tax commission requires us to turn all this in every single quarter to them. How many phone calls have you received? How many calls have come in? And again, it almost mimics the walk-in information, right? How many calls have come in? Yes, ma'am.
What do they do with that?
Oh, that's a great
That's what we don't
That's a
know.
good
It's a great question. Yeah,
That's a
it's
great
a
question.
Okay.
It's a 2-year plan. So every 2 years, we have to put together a plan. And what we do with that plan is it tells us how much staffing we need based on the size and the volume. This is just a small snippet of the information we turn in. We have to turn in every time we do a parcel, a property boundary change that has to be kept track of. Every time a deed is changed, a name is changed, all that information we have to collect this into the state tax commission. And it's all part of our 2-year plan to help us based on what we are, what we need staffing wise, but also helps them to go to legislation and say reimbursements for how much money we need to do our jobs and our tasks in our office. Real estate, we track how many parcels we go out and touch. So since January 2024 to December 31st, 2024, and it might have got cut off on here, but we touched 66,000 parcels of property in person, on foot. We break that out by our individual staff. Our data collectors do an awesome job.
Hold on, man.
Yeah.
Anna, Elijah.
Yeah. Jacob, he's
Yeah.
right there.
So there.
30,000 parcels they walked on this past year,
Yeah.
individually themselves.
So
That's-
if anyone ever loses it, if your dog ever gets out of the yard,
yeah.
one of these three is going to find it.
And we also track our vehicle usage, so we know how many miles our vehicles are being driven. Yeah, that's really small, but if you ever want to see this information, we're more than happy to share it with you. We track how much our vehicles are driven every month, which vehicles are driven. So this is a hot cool map, kind of understand which cars are being used more than other ones, so we can rotate those cars around and make them last longer, so we're being more efficient.
So we can level out the mileage.
Mileage.
And right now, we also have a fleet that's somewhat large, but we have more field staff than vehicles. So, and that's probably going to be that way. But we've been fortunate to possibly add a couple of vehicles and to try to balance that out even longer, just to make sure that we're not necessarily having to double up in cars and things like that, which we do and can do. But we've just got some really new efficient ways to utilize what we have and to,
Yeah.
to see as many parcels as we need.
And we look at this information because we also look at this, it tells us how much we're using them. We also can look at weather data too at the same time and tell us if the area blue, which is not being very used, but what was the weather like? Was it too hot, too cold, those type of conditions? So we can justify, we can quantify our information as well. We have time for questions, and I want Bill to show a real quick demo of something at the
Yeah.
same time. So while he gets ready,
Yeah.
let's have some questions. Yes, sir.
On that BOE board, the Board of Equalization.
Yes, sir.
They decide between you and the person that's arguing their values. So can you just stack that board with your friends that'll agree with you, or who decides who's on the board?
Unfortunately not. So
We have a unique
we have
makeup.
a unique one in Greene County. We have our own statute. So our statute is that the city of Springfield gets the number of people who were at the BOE board before the new rules went into effect was in 1985 when they did statewide reassessment. So they have 5 people they get to appoint from the city of Springfield, and then our commissioners appoint 3 people to the board. So we have an 8-person BOE. Most counties have a 3 or 4-person BOE. So we have a quite large BOE, and then they hear those cases. They're independent. They're mostly people involved with real estate or development or construction, and they can make those decisions. They look at the information. Some of them are even realtors and brokers,
Yeah.
and they make it say they rule for or against, and then there's options after that.
Yeah. So, but the terms are 2-year terms, 4-year terms?
They're
I can't-
4-year terms.
So, there's not really a stackable option. In the city, they have a little bit of a slower nomination process to get their members on the board. But I think the board is extremely fair, and I honor their decisions because they are a collective hive of a lot of information in business, in real estate, in construction, and I think they do an
They're
excellent job.
Subject matter experts in their individual fields. So
They
when
really
it comes to commercial or residential or construction. Yes, Bob.
I'll just say we do need a commercial lender or realtor if anyone has a recommendation.
Commercial lender realtor, we have a vacancy. Real quick, we have an internal website we built ourselves for our office that Bill did for our office to use and be able to access information. It's called The Book, and it's based off William the Conqueror, the first assessor. But Bill, just want to talk a little bit real quick about what this is?
So today is actually my 1-year anniversary.
Yay!
We've all probably worked other places in our lives, and so places that I've worked in the past had employee portals, places that they could go, that they could share information and collaborate, so that institutional knowledge isn't just hoarded and kept on little sticky notes in everybody's cubicle, right? So we want that information to be spread throughout the organization. So I built this. It's all built through SharePoint, so it's utilizing our Microsoft 365 licenses that we all pay for. So it's just a little bit more added value that we have through each employee, and we can add stuff like we can add fun stuff. Like if you could click on Employee Spotlight in the upper part there. So we have a little questionnaire that goes out. So imagine yourself as a new employee. And you come in and you really don't know the people that you're sitting around, and it's busy season and you really don't have a time to kind of connect. You can, I know that person, I sit next to them. I can click on them and we ask them Regina does a good job of sending out some questions, and they can just pull up that and kind of get to know other stuff. How can they help? How can they do their job better? How can they do stuff? If you can click on Real Estate Document Center. So basically scroll down. So basically, commercial property quick links is there at the very top. So everything that they're going to use during their daily lives, a commercial appraiser, are links right direct there. If you want to go back up to debook home at the top left, go back to the home. If you scroll down, we've got quick links for time cards, statutes, executime, the assessor's public website, the state tax commission, even some little weather widgets for data collectors and appraisers who are going out in the field. They don't even have to go to weather.com. They can just come here and see where they're going to each part of the county. So
it's kind of it's a lot more stuff in that website that site that we use. This is like what we envision when you come to work. You open up your computer. This is the site that's defaulted. So everything you need to do your job in our office is on there. So personal property has a link. It has our policies, like what a 5-acre homestead policies on there. You find information for our forms and information that you want to mail out to somebody or email someone. All that access is within this site that we maintain ourselves, that we can actually. So instead of going out to someone's cubicle and you got Post-it notes everywhere, this is the Post-it note center now. So that way it's always updated. It's in one location. So someone doesn't have an outdated Post-it note taped to their cubicle or an outdated memo. It's all right here. So that's all at their fingertips. They can look at it. We can change things. Where's that one we have is our employee calendar up there too?
Yep, if you go to calendar and office events.
So calendar. So we actually have our own office calendar. If you want to scroll down a little bit, it talks about our events in our office that we do, and things like that. And then if you scroll down farther, is that where we have our other stuff on there? So
Yep.
it has when people's birthdays are coming up, so we know our birthdays that are coming up in our office. And you scroll on down farther, then we have pictures from
Holiday party.
Halloween, retirements, all that's there. So people can go out and take a look at those if you missed that event or those type of things that are out there. So that's kind of something we kind of built internally, which we're using, which has become a really helpful resource for our office to have. It's right at 8:43. So if you have any last final questions, I like to talk. So with that, always happy to have you stop by, learn about the assessment process. If you want to know more or see more at D-Book, give us a call. We're happy to sit down with you and talk to you about that, or talk about your assessment, or even show you how the assessment process works. But thank you all, and we're going to head off to Board of Equalization. It's at 9:00. So thank you all. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you.